gentlemen, welcome to the Indie Showcase, your go-to podcast for underrated, unseen indie video games. As this is the first time we're doing the show full on through, I thought I'd get a few rules out of the way. First, it must be independently developed. Publishing through Ubisoft or something is fine, but development must be independent from the bigger studios. Second, as a reminder, these are my own thoughts and nobody else's. If I like a game that you didn't, that's totally fine, and I'd love to hear your own thoughts in the comments, or reply using my Twitter handle that's at BramnetExcite, or at BramnetExcite, and I might respond to some of them on the show. Number 3, it must be a game I've played to completion at least once before, or at least played 2 hours of for games that don't have an end goal. Now, with that out of the way, let's get on with the showcase. This week we're talking about the hack-tastic hacking game, Hacknet. When I first started up the game for the first time, I wasn't sure what to expect. All I knew going into it was that it was somewhat related to hacking, and most, if not all, of the UI was terminal-based. The game had a very ominous opening as text appears on the screen, introducing the player to a character named Bit, who died 14 days ago, and is now sending us through challenge after challenge to figure out who was Bit, what's the deal with the operating system that we're using, Hacknet, which the game is named after, and why it was never meant to release to the public in the first place. This game uses nice ambient, sometimes semi-techno music to fill the void of silence in this primarily text-based game. Booting up the game will give a screen similar to booting up a computer, and then you are greeted with a combination of 4 windows, consisting of a terminal, a very basic GUI, a node-based map, which represents your computers, or rather, the computers you have access to, and current RAM usage. The game then launches you into a basic tutorial that isn't the best written in my opinion, but it does give you an idea of how to use the 4 windows. Once you finish the tutorial, the game will start off with Bit's post-death emails that were sent by his PC because of a timer on his computer that sends the emails out if there has been more than 14 days since he has last logged in. The emails basically ask you to pick up where he left off and figure out what happened with him. The game then sends you through a series of tasks set up by various hacking communities as you gain more programs and then you can use to hack into systems such as schools or banking or public records, each one having a stronger security system than the last. When hacking, you have to crack open a digital port on the machine. This can be anything from a web port, a CQL port, or an SSH port. For those that aren't computer geeks, it doesn't really matter if you know what they do or not. Sometimes you have to break through a firewall or a proxy, requiring you to run a program a couple times until you get the right output, or opening up a program on a completely different machine that you've cracked open before in order to weaken the proxy by overloading it with requests from elsewhere. Or from your own machine if you want, but that might lead the owner of the machine you're trying to hack right back at you. Like in real life, what you're doing in the game is illegal, so you have to cover your tracks by deleting logs off machines, or it could be traced back to you, and be hacked into while you're off hacking elsewhere. The game actually makes you very aware of what to do in those situations by forcing you through a hack from one of the hackers in the game. Although, if you already knew what you were doing thanks to a previous playthrough, you know exactly how to stop the hack before it finishes and break the machine the hacker was using to hack you in the first place, essentially skipping the tutorial. One of the balancing aspects of the game is shown on the RAM overview, showing you what programs that you're currently using and how much resources from your RAM they're taking up. If you try to launch a program while too many of them are already running, you'll encounter an overflow error while it's booting, and you'll have to wait until more RAM frees up, or kill the programs that are already running. Unlike games in a similar style, although most of them are MMOs, like CodeLink or Hacker Experience, the RAM is not upgradable, which forces you to be strategic on how and when you run programs. Later in the game, you'll come across tracing, which starts an on-screen timer. Unless you disconnect before the trace is complete, your computer will begin to be hacked, and you'll be tunneled into a last-ditch effort mini-game, if you can call it that, to try and save your machine. If not, you'll have to restore from your last backup, aka the last time you saved. I think what I like most about this game is not only the chilled atmosphere that it gives through the limited visuals and music, but also the concept and plot of the game as a whole. If you're someone who can't figure out how to turn on your printer at work, my condolences to you, I wouldn't recommend this game. But if you want just an inkling of what it would be like to be a real-world hacker without having to worry about other online players trying to constantly barrage into your virtual machine, I'd say this game is for you. Also, bonus points because while it follows most of the Unix command line system, it actually takes some commands that premiered in DOS. Again, if I'm speaking gibberish to you, don't worry about it. And that's Hacknet. A fun little hacking experience for those that just want to taste.
Bonus points.
Wait, seriously? We're not done yet? What do you mean by bonus points?
Bonus points are when the game has released additional features, like DLC or easy access to modding, stuff that doesn't affect the base game, but is still cool to have.
Right. While the game has a sequel as DLC content that allows for more types of ports, more hacking programs, as well as a live time feed of an IRC chat room, which I found really cool, it was a really cool playthrough. The story was more simplified this time to a series of tasks by one hacking group called the Labyrinth. As their group's membership structure was so convoluted, it was like a labyrinth. Putting the DLC content aside, the game itself is actually built on top of an interpreter that the developers coded themselves. When you look down into the game's code, it's all XML files, which means it is extremely easy for players to modify the game to their liking. Or, to be more specific, you can create mods of your own with relatively little to no coding necessary. Well, coding knowledge. The game is also fully integrated with Steam Workshop, which allows anyone to make any kind of story that they want using the game's mechanics, and allows you to play anyone else's story. There's one I'm waiting for called Malware, which they released the demo for the mod, but it hasn't fully released yet. And I've been following the feed of Malware, and a lot of people are really enjoying that, so I'm looking forward to whenever that comes out. But that's a mod for an already released game. Might not even cover that. But don't count it out. That's all for this week, though. Join us again next week, where we'll be covering another underappreciated indie game of the past or present. See ya!